Thor, The Dark World, Easter eggs, references, and trivia. This is everything that Jason and I could find for you guys. There are a lot, so hang on to your seatbelts, alright? Now, we're going to go over a bunch of them. We're going to start with number one. Now, that prologue scene that we get at the beginning of the film is actually directed by Tim Miller. Tim Miller directed Deadpool in 2016. Tim Miller is now directing a James Cameron-produced Terminator film. Tim Miller, the last Terminator film was directed by Alan Taylor, who directed this film, Thor: The Dark World. So Kevin Feige has confirmed that the Cronin creature we see at the beginning is, of course, Korg, the Cronin. We see, of course, the Cronin race in Thor's debut in Journey into Mystery number 83. So this wasn't a reference and a nod to that. But the part that is doesn't make much sense to me is if it really is Korg the Cronin, what doesn't make sense is the director of Thor Ragnarok, Taika Waititi, is playing this character, Korg, in Thor Ragnarok. So if Thor smashed him into a million pieces, did he get rebuilt like Humpty Dumpty again or something? So, I'm not going to understand the continuity there, but we'll be interesting to see if that really is, because I think it was made to be more of an Easter egg, but we'll have to wait and see. We get our third appearance of Hyujin and Munin, Thought and Memory. This is, as I just said, their third appearance in an MCU film. The first was, of course, in Thor, the 2011 film, where we get to see them on Odin's on the side thrones of Odin and during Thor's coronation. We get to see them during the Avengers film when Loki has been taken from the shield carrier craft by Thor, and then Thor and right before Thor and Iron Man fight, we get to see Hyujin and Munin, and they're of course relaying information of Midgard to Odin. We get to see the Hall of Science for the first time in an MCU film, and the Hall of Science has a replica of Yggdrasil, which is the World's Tree. Now, the Yggdrasil represents all 9 realms. The 9 realms are Nidavellir, Niflheim, Muspelheim, Alfheim, Vanaheim, Jotunheim, Svartalfheim, Asgard, and Midgard. When Odin is explaining how the ether is fluid, he says there are other relics that are stones. He's of course referencing the Infinity Gems, or as they're known in the comics, or rather as they're known in the MCU as Infinity Stones. And again, as Odin says, the ether is a fluid. We are going to be doing a video on where we think the Soul Stone is and how we think it links back to how it's spelled out to Thanos, so be on the lookout for that video. When Loki is sitting in his prison cell, and to pass the time, he is throwing up an object that looks like a cup, like a baseball, to the ceiling and back. This is, of course, a nod and reference to Steve McQueen's character in The Great Escape, where to pass time in a cooler, his character would grab a baseball and a baseball glove and throw the ball up to the ceiling. At around the 48-minute mark, when Malekith gets his Thunderdome, it really is a very similar reference to how the character looked in the John Byrne design of the character, whose face was half purple in the comics, and also the starburst on the chest armor was also a nod to that original costume design. At around the 52-minute and 4-second mark, we get a chalkboard full of Easter eggs. We get first we get, of course, the all 9 realms: Nidavellir, Muspelheim, Alfheim, Jotunheim, Svartalfheim, Midgard, Asgard. And then after that, we get Simon's theory of relativity. It is, of course, a reference to Walter Simonson, who is best known for his work on Marvel Comics' Thor, which he began writing and drawing with issue number 337 back in November of '83. He's also responsible for introducing the greatest MCU villain, Malekith the Accursed. Also, he introduced, of course, Algrim and Curse, and also one of my all-time favorite characters in the comics, and someone I'm really hoping is in Thor Ragnarok, the great Beta Ray Bill. The Fault, which is a massive rip in the universe leading to any number of realities in time and space. Next, we got the Nexus of all reality, first seen in Fear number 13 back in 1973. Now, the Nexus is a cross-dimensional gateway which provides a pathway to any and all possible realities. This included realities between realities. It's located in the swamp in Florida Everglades, whose current sole guardian is the Man-Thing. Next, we got Kyle and Yost. This is Craig Kyle and Christopher Yost, who are frequent collaborators, and they are probably best known for the creation of X-23, the teenage female clone of Wolverine. They also have co-wrote many issues of Marvel Comics and a TV series, such as The Avengers, Earth's Mightiest Heroes, which if you have not seen, check it out. Also, Christopher Yost is one of the writers for this film. He's also one of the writers for Thor Ragnarok, and Craig Kyle co-produced this film, Thor: The Dark World. So next we get the Crossroads, which was seen in The Incredible Hulk number 300. The Crossroads is an other dimensional reality where the traditional laws of physics do not apply. The Crossroads serves as a nexus point to an infinite number of alien dimensions. In the comics, when Bruce Banner was completely consumed by the rampaging fury of his alter ego, the Sorcerer Supreme Doctor Strange, he decided to exile the Hulk to the Crossroads. Next, we got the final one on the chalkboards. We got the 616 universe. Now, Earth 616 is the primary continuity in which most Marvel comics do take place. I'm even going to admit that I'm probably very wrong and really out there on this one, but I'm going to try and mention it anyways. So at the 58-minute and 34-second mark, when Thor makes the deal with Loki, we see that a woman is imprisoned behind Thor and in front of Loki's cell. But what's interesting is, during the Avengers Age of Ultron, Tony Stark gets a nightmare glimpse that Scarlet Witch gave him, which I actually believe to be an actual scene from Avengers Infinity War. And during that scene, we see all the Avengers have been killed, and next to Hawkeye, we see a mysterious woman we still have never met up until this point from Spider-Man Homecoming. I wonder if this is the same woman, but probably not. But if you look at the stance and the motion, it's a very similar motion of how they're sitting, the head, but the way when you'll see the comparison shots we give you. But the other logical options of who the woman in Tony's nightmare could be in Age of Ultron, it's either Valkyrie or more likely possibly Captain Marvel. Obviously, they had not cast Brie Olsen at that point, but hopefully we'll find out to see who that woman is next to Hawkeye. So at around the 1 hour mark, we see that the Einherjar guard that informs Odin of Loki's death is the same Einherjar guard that Loki was impersonated right before his funny Captain America impersonation, and that was at, I believe, the 1 hour and 25-minute mark. Tom Hiddleston wore a Captain America suit and did an impersonation of Chris Evans. Chris Evans later showed up on set back in LA and shot his cameo imitating Tom Hiddleston's impression of Chris Evans. At around the 1 hour and 5-minute mark, Thor accidentally destroys a statue of his grandfather Bor, and Loki makes a wisecrack that he killed him. But what's interesting here is in the Marvel Comics, Thor ended up killing his grandfather as a part of deception by Loki. The filmmakers chose Iceland as the setting for the dark world of Svartalfheim, and what was interesting is, for its black volcanic landscapes is why they chose that. The name itself, Svartalfheim, literally means home of the Black Elves in Old Norse. When Loki is creating the illusion to trick Malekith and he stabs Thor, this is a callback and a reference back to the first Avengers film, not Captain America, the first Avenger, the Joss Whedon's The Avengers, where we see Thor trying to tell Loki to stop this madness, and Loki gives him the same exact stab moment and says sentiment. So kind of a throwback and nod back to that moment. See you in hell, monster. This line is, of course, a reference to Niflheim, which is run by, it's really a foreshadowing to Niflheim, which is run by the leader, Hela, who is the goddess of death, who we're, of course, going to see in Thor Ragnarok. And I also have a little theory that she is possibly going to be Loki's mother in that film, so we shall see. We get, of course, the famous Stan Lee with a cameo in this, and he says, "Can I have my shoe back?" Funny stuff, Stan. At around the 1 hour and 23-minute mark, Chris Hemsworth was actually improvising hanging Mjolnir, his hammer of course, on a coat hook in a polite manner after playing with it in between takes. Hidden Mickey. Disney is imprinting their logo all over this. At around the 1 hour and 30-minute mark, when Malekith is looking up at the convergence, we see that it's taking place, of course, in the climax of the film. You see that 3 of the realms have formed Mickey's ears. As we just mentioned, looking at the Mickey ears and the convergence, when Malekith is looking at that convergence, we do see a fiery planet on there, which is, of course, Muspelheim. Now, Muspelheim is the realm of eternal fire and the home of the fire demons and their ruler, Lord Surtur. In the comics, Lord Surtur attempts to bring upon Ragnarok, which is the Norse version of the apocalypse, the end of all things. He is so powerful that he is capable of rivaling Odin, and is far too powerful for Thor to take on alone. We will be seeing the incredibly powerful Fire Lord Surtur in Thor Ragnarok, and I'm going to assume that Surtur and Hela are going to be working together, and I gotta say, I can't wait to see that scene where Hulk is going to smash Lord Surtur. It's going to be incredible. When Odin shapeshifts back into Loki, you hear the line of Loki saying to Thor, "Thank you." If you notice, Loki is in a pose with his scepter in his hand. This is, of course, Loki's signature pose in the comics. According to Natalie Portman, she was not available for the post-credit scene where her and Thor are getting their makeout session on. And actually, what's cool is, instead of shooting with Natalie Portman, they instead shot with Chris Hemsworth's wife, Elsa Pataki. During the mid-credit scene where we see Volstagg and Lady Sif delivering the ether to Tavan, the Collector, who is, of course, an elder and a brother of the Grandmaster, because it's not wise to keep 2 Infinity Stones in the same location. One of the best things in his collections that we get to see, though, is the cocoon to Adam Warlock. Now, Adam Warlock was created by Beehive, a group of researchers whose goal was to create the perfect human being. In the MCU movies, or more specifically in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, he is created by the Sovereign in one of the 5 post/mid-credit scenes that we get to see. Odin's throne room set was built on Stage 8 at Shepperton Studios, the same stage where they shot a big Hydra facility in Captain America the First Avenger. It's also where we got to see the ceremony scene that was shot for the 1977 classic known as Star Wars Episode 4 A New Hope. It also housed the moon set for 2001 A Space Odyssey, which was directed by Stanley Kubrick and came out in 1968. This is the first MCU film not to be set in the United States. Fun fact. So according to filmmakers, amongst the Marauders that are imprisoned in the Asgardian prison, we get to see that one of them is a Corbinite. Now, these are a race of aliens that Thor encountered. One of them, Beta Ray Bill, who's one of my all-time favorite characters in the comics, became Thor's ally, and he was deemed worthy to receive an Asgardian hammer of his own known as Stormbreaker. Now, I really hope, as I've been mentioning a bunch in this video and other videos, I really hope we do get to see Beta Ray Bill and that he is in Thor Ragnarok. He's, as I mentioned, he's one of my favorite comic book characters, and I've just been waiting forever to see this character on the big screen. Mads Mikkelsen was considered for the role of Malekith, and I actually do remember when the reports came up that he was going to be in it. I was getting very excited about that, but he was up for the role of Malekith, but he did drop out due to scheduling conflicts and a shitty script. I'm just kidding. Due to scheduling conflicts with the concurrently filming, of course, Hannibal that came out in 2013, and it's a role that was portrayed, interesting enough, by Sir Anthony Hopkins in 3 films, who also plays Odin, of course, in this film. Christopher Eccleston, I hope I pronounced it right, but I probably butchered it. He was cast instead, of course, and Mads Mikkelsen was, of course, cast as Caecilius in Doctor Strange. Tom Hiddleston actually half-jokingly offered to direct this film, and Marvel took him pretty seriously, but they turned him down because of a lack of previous experience. Kenneth Branagh turned down directing this film, and he felt just that the locked release date did not give him enough pre-production time, and that he decided to work on Jack Wright and Shadow Recruit instead back in 2014. The filmmakers did originally intend to use Thor's antagonist, known as Lord Surtur, in this film. They were going to feature Surtur's realm, Muspelheim, which we did get a glimpse of as mentioned in this video, and they had scouted locations, and also they scouted for fire dancers to be cast as fire giants. The filmmakers eventually decided not to use Surtur in the film, and instead featured a second look at Jotunheim from the first film. Valkyrie was set to appear at one point in this film, and if you actually look, there is some concept art of her out there where she was drawn up, and the character, of course, is appearing in Thor Ragnarok. Despite being the main villain and even being all over the main poster, Christopher Eccleston's name is nowhere on any of the posters. Idris Elba did mention that he really disliked working on this film. It's okay, Idris, we disliked watching it too. I'm just kidding. There were some good moments, guys. Give me a break. As the constant reshoots were exhausting and time-consuming, he even referred to working on this film as torture. I think Idris Elba just must have been around for the filming of the Ian and Darcy scenes. Josh Dallas was supposed to return as Fandral, but his commitment on a show called Once Upon a Time, which you guys should check out, good show, prevented him from returning. He was replaced with Zachary Levi, who was the original choice for the character in the first Thor film. Joss Whedon, upcoming director, of course, of the Justice League film, along with Zack Snyder, and also directed the first and second Avenger films, The Avengers and Avengers Age of Ultron, did a number of rewrites on this film, including the extremely brief encounter we get with Korg the Cronin, which was originally supposed to be a much longer scene, and also Loki briefly masquerading as Captain America in a hallway conversation with Thor, which was just hysterical. The mid-credit scene that we get to see of the Collector with Lady Sif and Volstagg with the Ether was, of course, directed by James Gunn, and it directly ties back into the first Guardians of the Galaxy film, which came out in 2014. An abandoned plotline in this film was to have Jane Foster turn into a villain by the Ether and destroy Svartalfheim as a show of her power before going to Earth. It was dropped in favor of keeping the focus on Malekith and not introducing a third finale of this film. I'm glad they didn't, because we got so much development of Malekith in this film. So every MCU Phase 2 film, except for Ant-Man, pays homage to Star Wars in terms of a character getting his arm cut off. Of course, in Iron Man 3, which came out in 2013, we see Aldrich Killian lose his arm from Tony Stark doing the spike on him. In this film, Thor the Dark World, we get the illusion of Loki cutting off Thor's arm, courtesy of thank you to Frigga, his mother. In the next MCU film, we got Captain America: The Winter Soldier, my personal first or second favorite MCU film. We get Arnim Zola recreating and putting the Winter Soldier's arm back on. So that was really interesting. We also got, of course, in Guardians of the Galaxy, we see Gamora cut off both of Groot's arms. We also see Nebula get her hand stuck at the end of her battle with Gamora and basically cut off her own arm. And, of course, in Avengers Age of Ultron, we get the incredible Andy Serkis as Ulysses Claw. He gets his arm cut off by James Spader's Ultron. So, as I mentioned, Ant-Man is the only Marvel Phase 2 film where we did not see an arm get cut off. If someone's arm did get cut off in Ant-Man, please let us know in the comment section. We will definitely have to relook at that. In late 2011, Patty Jenkins was officially announced as director of this film, Thor: The Dark World. In December of 2011, she backed out of the project due to creative differences, Hollywood's favorite PR move to go to. Natalie Portman was very publicly upset, and you can actually tell during the making of this movie that she is very pissed off in this film. The talks between Marvel and Patty Jenkins broke down. Some sources even claim that Natalie Portman threatened not to take part in this film with another director, but could not get out of her contract. Patty Jenkins, of course, directed the really good 2017 comic book film known as Wonder Woman. Alright guys, well that's going to do it for this video. If there's anything we did miss, please let us know in the comment section below. We are going to be doing Easter eggs, references, and trivia for Thor Ragnarok, so be on the lookout for that video. And if you like these videos, hit the subscribe button. See you guys next time.